You're such an asshole.
We have a unique one. This comes from Chad Twizzler Stroke. He says, Cappy, I'd like you to do a YouTube video Clarey test on Robert Rogers. So let me go over here. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Rogers, 1731 to 1795, was a British Army officer and frontiersman born in Methuen, province of Massachusetts Bay. He fought in King George's War, the French and Indian War, and the American Revolutionary War. During the French and Indian War, Rogers raised and commanded Rogers Rangers, a ranger unit trained for carrying out asymmetric warfare. You all march in a straight line and wear red. Born to Ulster Scots settlers, James and Mary McFatridge Rogers, in Methuen, a small town in northeastern Massachusetts. So he was British, but born in the United States. But we weren't the United States back then. At that time, the town was a staging point for Scots-Irish settlers bound for the wilderness of New Hampshire. 1739, was 8 years old. The family relocated to Great Meadow District, New Hampshire, present-day Concord, where James founded a settlement, land he called Munterlony, after a place in Ireland, referred to his childhood residence as Montalonia, was later named Dunbarton, New Hampshire. Let's just stick with a fucking name. So I'm going to just assume he didn't have money. If they came over here as settlers, they didn't have a lot of money. In 1740, the War of Austrian Succession broke out in Europe. In 1744, the war spread to North America. Where it was known as King George's War, 1744 to 1748. During Rogers' youth, 1746, he saw service in the New Hampshire militia as a private in Captain Daniel Ladd's scouting company, and in 1747, also as a private in Ebenezer Eastman's scouting company, both times guarding the New Hampshire frontier. Well, what was the King George's War? How's that Australian? Formed part of the War of Austrian Succession. It was the third of four French and Indian War. What do the Austrians have to do with it? Yeah, I maybe studied this back when I was a kid. I don't remember it. So service and also private. In 1754, Rogers became involved with a gang of counterfeiters. He was indicted, but the case was never brought to trial. All right, I'm going to assume he didn't come from wealth because he wouldn't have gotten into counterfeiting. He served in the military. What time did he start? 1746. So he was 15 years old. Look, you 35-year-olds demand your student loan bailout. This guy's fine award, 15 years old. Yeah, I need my EBT and my SNAP and my student loan bailout. So 1754, he was 24 years old. That's just about the war. Ranger recruiter. 1756, Rogers arrived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and began to muster soldiers for the British Crown. So he was on the side of the Redcoats. So he was 25 at that time. Using the authority vested in him by Colonel Winslow, Rogers' recruitment drive was well supported by the frightened and angry provincials due to attacks by American Indians along the frontier. In Portsmouth, he also met his future wife, Elizabeth Brown, the youngest daughter of Anglican Reverend Arthur Brown. Robert's brothers, James, Richard, and possibly John, all served in Rogers Rangers. Richard died of smallpox, 1757. His corpse was later disinterred and mutilated by hostile Indians. Okay. I got other things to do with my time, but all right. Rogers raised and commanded the famous Rogers Rangers that fought for the British during the French and Indian War. This militia unit operated primarily in the Lake George and Lake Champlain regions of New York. They frequently undertook winter raids against French towns and military emplacements, traveling on sleds, crude snowshoes, and even ice skates across frozen rivers. Rogers Rangers were never fully respected by the British regulars, yet they were one of the few non-Indian forces able to operate in the hospital region despite harsh winter conditions and mountainous terrain. Rogers showed an unusual talent for commanding his units in conditions to which the regular armies of the day were unaccustomed. He took the initiative in mustering, equipping, and commanding Ranger units. He wrote an early guide for commanding such units as Robert Rogers' 28 Rules of Ranging. The Queen's York Rangers of the Canadian Army, the U.S. Army Rangers, and the 1st Battalion, 119th Field Artillery all claimed Rogers as their founder, and Rogers' standing orders are still quoted on the first page of the U.S. Army's Ranger Handbook. Well, look at that. He's the founder of the U.S. Army Rangers. Didn't he fight on the British? He's ours. Shut up. He's ours. Rogers was personally responsible for paying his soldiers, and he went deeply into debt and took loans to ensure that they were paid properly after the regular pay was rated during transfer. So, okay, you were a counterfeiter, and then what? You had a change of heart? Was it the Reverend's daughter that did this to you? I was going to dock him a point on that. He was never compensated by the British Army or government, though he had reasons to believe that he should have had his expenses reimbursed. Northern Campaign served under a series of unsuccessful British commanders. Time Rangers proved indispensable. 12 companies. Several additional contingents of Indians who had pledged their allegiance to the British cause. Rangers were kept orderly and distinct from British regulars. Rogers was acting commandant. Captured and ambushed several Canadians. Surrendered Fort William. Ba-da-ba. More fighting. Dates and locations and dates. Montreal Campaign. Quebec fell. Rogers joined Amherst. Western Campaign. Pontiac's War. Man, this guy just professional soldier here. Post-war success and failure. Rogers had brought total dedication to his position as commander of the Rangers, as was often the custom in the British American armies. So he was out before the Revolutionary War. In 1764, he was faced with the problem of repaying his creditors. To recoup his finances, Robert engaged briefly in a business venture with fur trader John Askin near Detroit. After it failed, he hoped to win the money by gambling. He totally ruined. Creditors put him in prison debt for New York, but he escaped. 1765, Rogers voyaged to England to obtain pay for his service and capitalize on his fame. His journals, a concise account of North America, were published. That would be interesting stuff. Should make movies out of that, but Hollywood, oh my God, can we turn him into a gay lesbian sitting in a wheelchair? No! Immediately thereafter, he wrote the stage play Pontiac, or The Savages of America, significantly as early American drama and for its sympathetic portrayal of American Indians. He enjoyed some moderate success with his publications, though Pontiac was condemned by the critics and attracted royal attention. He had an audience with King George III, to whom he proposed to undertake an expedition to find the Northwest Passage. The king appointed Rogers governor of, Michilimackinac, Mackinac City, Michigan, with a chartered... Why would you spell something like that? Why would you spell it like that? And he returned to North America. Royal governor. Upon his return to America, Rogers moved with his wife to the fur trading outpost of Fort Malacara and began his duties as royal governor. All right, so he got a job. During Rogers' absence, Amherst had been replaced by Thomas Gage as commander of the British forces, and Gage was a bitter rival of Amherst. Who the fuck is this Amherst guy? Rogers was a loyal friend of Amherst and was consequently hated by Gage. As an aristocrat and political intriguer, Gage viewed Rogers as a provincial upstart who posed a threat to his newly acquired power due to his friendship with Amherst. Oh, just drama and petty bullshit, huh? At the time, Rogers was still a half-pay captain in the British Army and to some degree under Gage's military jurisdiction. However, Gage could not challenge Rogers, the king's appointee, unless he could find a good reason, as the king would countermand any. Gage said, I found some little justification, stab him in the back. Unaware of the plotting, continued to perform administrative path to ocean remained undiscovered until 1792-93 Peace River expedition. Why are we making movies about these guys? Rogers perceived need viewed as strong, negotiated with the Indians, parlayed with the French, and developed a plan for a province in Michigan be administered. Arrest for treason. Gage hired spies, intercept Rogers. Before Rogers offended his private secretary, Nathaniel Potter, subsequently gave Gage the excuse that he needed. Potter sworn affidavit. Rogers that, this and that. Claims questionable. Vindication. Gage sent Rod Montreal to stand trial, but once there, Rogers was among friends of Amherst. Influence. Rogers acquitted. This is all like petty girl boss horse shit. Acquitted of all. Verdict was sent to King George for approval. The king approved, but could not call Gage a liar openly. Instead, he made a note that there was reason to think Rogers might have been treasonous. Michigan, American Revolutionary War. Because of his legal troubles in England, Robert Rogers missed the major events in the disaffected colonies. He heard that revolution was likely to break out and return to America in 1775. The Americans were as out of touch with Rogers as he was with them, looking upon him as the noted Ranger leader and expecting him to behave as one. They were at a loss to explain his drunken and licentious. What is that? Does it mean you're hitting on women? Does it mean lice-like? What is licentious? You're the author, Aaron. Why don't you know this? Promiscuous and unprincipled sexual mad. Oh, no. You wanted to chase after women. Let's shoot him quick. After that time, Rogers was perhaps suffering from alcoholism that blighted his later life and led to a loss of his family, land, money, and friends. It is unclear exactly what transpired between the revolutionary leaders and Rogers. Rogers was arrested by the local committee of safety as a possible spy and released on. I mean, this guy, maybe the guy never had any stability. He was offered a commission in the Revolutionary Army by the Continental Congress, but declined on the grounds that he was a British officer. He later wrote to George Washington asking him for a command, but instead Washington had him arrested. Man, this guy can't get a break. Escaped from Washington's custody, only find revolutionary ranks firm against him. So he offered his services to the British Army. Oh, he's a merc. They also were hoping that he would live up to his reputation. He formed another ranger called the Queen's Rangers as its colonel. Assistant in the cabinet, Nathan Hale, spy, contemporaries account, Hale, library cons. Consider Connecticut Chavez, British Army forcibly retired on grounds of poor health. Return home now was impossible. Seemed to confirm Washington's suspicions, prompting legislator to resign one proscription, the other divorce from his wife on the grounds of abandonment. Jeez. After a brief sojourn in England, Rogers turned to raise the King's Rangers in Nova Scotia, was unable to keep the position due to his alcoholism. Captured by an American privateer and spent some time in prison in New York, escaping in 1782. Evacuated with other British troops to England, unable to earn a living or able to defeat his alcoholism. He died in obscurity and in debt in 1795. He was buried in London. Wow, that is a sad story, man. That's tragic. Well, okay, let's do the test. He didn't run. He didn't come from wealth. He didn't major in stupid shit because they didn't have college back then. He went right into the military at 15. He worked until he was dead. Guy gets a perfect score. Would I like to have a drink with him? Yeah, but he'd have probably 7 or 8. Would I like him to run for office? Yeah, if he could have kept his alcoholism in check. Alcoholic right here. Yeah, you got to get that shit in check, man. It'll ruin you. Is it sobriety better? No, it's not. I mean, it is, but it's not as fun. You get these, sobriety is really great. It's really fun. I'm like, no, it's not. No, really isn't. Yeah, it's better. I understand. Let's not horse around here. Okay. It was good times getting drunk. Not all of them were good, but they were fun times. Yeah, I guess if he was sober, I'd probably vote for him. But man, that guy just didn't get a break. Is that election today? Wait, New York City election. New York City election. Hold the voter hands. Veto. Who? Wait, there's 3 of them. Mandami. Who's Sliwa? How many? Look. Oh my God. Mandami is a socialist. What, the Democrats of New York weren't? What's the big deal? He's just going to be honest about it? All right. Madami Sliwa. Who's Sliwa? Curtis Sliwa. Oh, is he one of the Guardian Angels? Yeah, he's one of the guardian angels. All right. Founder and chief executive officer of the guardian angel. Well, there's your guy. There's who you should have voted for. Let me guess. He's going to get the least amount. New York mayoral elections. When Dami Como Sliwa face off. Polls open. Nobody. Nothing's coming in. You got Cuomo. Bibbity bobbity bobbity boobity. Corrupt motherfucker. Then you got the socialist nepotist piece of shit. And then you got the real man. Guess who the New Yorkers are not going to vote for? Man, those guardian angels, they didn't have to do any of that. I remember them back in the 80s. Yeah, I can't blame them. All right, that's it. Questions, answers, assholeconsulting.com. We'll see you guys later. 2 years.